Welcome into a special Olympic Games edition of the Time Out Show. Andy Brown with you, and we are absolutely thrilled and honored to have a member of the United States Olympic team from 1992, Penny Neer, Hillsdale County's own, right here in studio with us this evening, and we're looking forward to talking about some athletes that are playing today and hearing her story. And it's an interesting one, and we look forward to talking to her. Our show is brought to you by Coach B's Driving School, the Jack Smith Agency, and by Randy's Auto Body. Penny Neer is one of the most recognizable names in Hillsdale County. She was a 1992 member of the United States Olympic team that played in Barcelona, Spain. She is one of the top student athletes in the history of North Adams-Jerome and the University of Michigan. And we are thrilled that she's with us tonight. Let me go through some of these statistics. Just a couple of things to set this up, and then we'll bring in Penny. She hates that I'm talking about this, but I have to do it. She went to the University of Michigan on a basketball scholarship and was a three-sport star. She earned a total of 8 varsity letters at the University of Michigan in basketball, track and field, and softball. In 3 seasons on Michigan's varsity basketball team, Neer scored 456 points and had 64 blocked shots. She became the first University of Michigan woman All-American in track and field, and as a senior, she became the first female athlete from U of M to win a national title in a track and field event. We could go on and on. The thing that makes Penny so cool is she doesn't want to talk about any of that. She's more about the people that helped get her there and the people that she's working with today. Penny, thanks for coming in. How are you?
I'm good. And
how's the summer going?
Having me, I'm busy.
You are busy. We're out there cutting wood and hauling rocks and stuff, huh?
That's right. Plus, I have 2 kids in high school.
Oh.
They're in every sport there is.
Well, before we talk about your journey to the Olympic Games and kind of reminisce a little bit, you've been working with some kids in our area right now. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've been doing with them?
Well, I do help with the Tri-County Throwers Club that Bill Teft heads up, but I first want to start with, I was hesitant to come on the show. I thought everybody's heard my stories, and then my mom reminded me that these kids weren't even born yet.
Right.
So thanks, Mom. But I want to talk about some kids that don't always get the headlines, but they're working hard, and they have excellent grades and have a background that was similar to what I had. So the first one is Sarah Kempa. She's a Hillsdale gal. She went through Davis Middle School with the Shymans. She set records in the 800, the 400, the 200. She was second in the league in every one of those events. She runs cross country and track and plays basketball. So that's my first shout out, Sarah. My next one is Anna Rushing. She'll be a junior at Hillsdale, and she came up through the Shymans program at Davis. She qualified for state this year in 4 events, and that was the 4x1, the 400, the 4x4, and the 100. She ended up all state in the 4x1. She never complains. She's got the best attitude. She's an excellent student and is in the marching band, so very proud of that. The next one is near and dear to my heart, Jacob Patrick. He'll be a senior at Litchfield, and he threw the discus so far. He won the state, set a record. He broke his dad's school record in the last, it hadn't been broken for 25 years. So he ended up throwing 194 feet as a high school thrower. That's incredible. The next one is Tyrus Conley. He's a graduate from Homer, and he threw shot put and discus in high school. And what's neat about Tyrus is he got a hold of Bill Teft in this Tri-County Throwers Club, and he said, hey, I want to learn how to throw hammer, javelin, the weight throw. And this is key because they don't offer these events in high school, only at college level. Tyrus ended up earning a scholarship to Tulsa in athletics, and he had a 32 on his ACT, so he got an academic scholarship. So those are the folks I'd like to highlight.
This Jacob Patrick kid, you texted or emailed me about him about a month ago. We've got to get him on the show. I understand he has come in and talked to Bob, but what an incredible season for him. The Litchfield track team with Sykes And this kid, pretty special.
Yep. Great attitudes, and they do their homework. They study the sport. So
you talked about that from your own standpoint, as far as you told me a few minutes ago, if I knew then what I knew now about, your approach and everything as a thrower. And are you able to talk to these kids about that during the course of a year and sort of give them the benefit of your experiences?
I can demonstrate every sport practically from having played it, and I tell a story about my kids are in sports now, and if they ever need an extra person, I'll jump in, and the girls will say, "Mom, you're going to hurt somebody." But
yeah, I mean, you look at your own experience back at North Adams, just a tiny school. I work at one just like it. But a small school, not the sort of place that is a factory for Olympic athletes, and talk a little bit about just playing sports as a high school kid. You trying it all, I would assume, and finding out what you were good at and what you liked.
Well, fortunately, back then, they let us do both softball and track, concurrent seasons. Also did volleyball and basketball. Well, being the tallest girl in the county helped, and I was a hurdler and did all these other sports. Well, my mom decided right before my senior year I should try throwing discus because my hands are so big. Well, we didn't have a track. We didn't have a throwing circle. We had a rubber discus that had been hit by a lawnmower. So I said, all right, I'll give it a whirl, so to speak. So I take this discus home and would throw off the road down into the yard. And finally, I got it to fly nice and flat, and Mom would throw it back. Problem was it would saw off the new growth of the pine trees, so they had to end. But
you're knocking down the woods, huh?
Yeah, so I went to the state meet and had a successful meet. I won the shot in the discus and graduated, and right before I did, Ned White was my biology teacher, and he came up with this Detroit Free Press and a little article in the back circled that said, hey, there's a Detroit Free Press invitational track meet. You should go. I'd never been out of sight of Jackson, I don't think, so my folks took me up to this meet, and there were girls there with the official throwing shoes and sweats and coaches, and here I am in my high tops and braids and throwing this rubber discus, and a man approached me. He was 68 years old, bright red hair, and he said, how'd you like a track scholarship to Michigan? And I said, no, thank you. Why not? He was incredulous. I said, well, I'm already going there to play basketball. So he was happy he'd have an athlete that he wouldn't have to pay for.
Right.
So I get up to U of M, and I was so far behind in basketball. I had the basic skills. Kevin Williams was an awesome coach, but these girls were everyone was taller than me. But I had my braids in, and everyone said, well, no one wears braids and plays basketball, and I just swing my head and use them as a defensive tool. Whop! So, but as you said, one of the sports I played was softball, and one day we had a track meet. The same day we had a softball doubleheader. So I'm known as the first woman in Michigan history to wear the stirrups and the sliding pants and the whole softball uniform to throw discus.
So you absolutely had the softball uniform on. I want before we get all into the Michigan stuff. As far as your high school career, you win a state title in the shot and disc, right?
Yeah.
Now you pretty much taught yourself. It sounds like you did have. I would imagine you had some kind of coaching, though, right?
Well, Ned White handed me a track and field Omni book, so we looked up the page that said, "Here's how you throw discus."
Was there a track coach?
We had a figurehead track coach.
So you had, but nobody to give you like personalized instruction.
No.
So you made it to U of M basically on your own.
Well,
just
discus, yeah. But once I got up to Michigan,
then you got
this
some coaching.
Red Simmons was
right.
Incredible, and so Title IX had just come in to play, and that figured greatly because
when he got a hold of you, did he try? When your coach at Michigan got a hold of you, did he really try to remake everything you were doing? Did you kind of have to start from scratch, or were you doing it somewhat correctly just on instinct?
It's funny you ask that because all the while I threw my senior year, I just threw from the front of the ring. But my arms are so long and I'm very athletic, so it went really far with only a portion of the throw. So I was about a sophomore or junior before he taught me how to spin and how to do the official throwing. So Red took me all over the nation to throw the discus. And we were down at Nationals, and I won, and I'm tagged as the first All-American at Michigan. And that's just by chance and luck, because another girl also was All-American, but my event was held first. So how lucky was that? But I get home from the Nationals, and U of M said, good job, way to go, you know. And here Red Simmons took one of his trophies from the 1936 Olympics, took the placard off and put my name on.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So at Michigan, you're a full-time student. You play basketball. You were a world-class track athlete at that point, and also played softball.
Right.
Were the coaches cooperative, or did they kind of want more of your time than you were able to give them? I mean, how did that work, doing all of that at the same time?
You know, back then, I think they all realized that every sport you do helps every sport you do. So they were very supportive, and whatever it took. So the kid, again, you're talking about these kids that you're working with and high school athletes around, and there seems to be this trend, and we've talked about this on the show before, of, you know, student athletes specializing on maybe basketball or baseball or whatever the case may be, and doing that year-round and maybe not doing the other sports. Here's an example of an athlete who went the other way, and you tried to do as many different things as you could. Probably, I would assume, because you enjoyed playing them, right? Oh, I loved playing.
So all of them.
Even when I played for Michigan, I would go and play intramural basketball too.
Did you? So you were playing, wow, I bet everybody on the other team appreciated that. So did you have a favorite? I mean, if you had to choose one, I mean, was it track or was it something else?
Whatever sport I was in at the moment.
At that time, okay.
So, but I did manage to major in computer science, and you know, what a choice. It was right on the cusp of computers becoming important. But I do want to mention, you know, my folks were at every meet, every basketball game. We had hot meals every night, clean uniforms. Even if we got done at midnight, it didn't matter. We had all of that support. So that was just key.
Well, we have much more with Penny. We're going to do another segment and talk a little bit more about her amazing athletic career. It's fun to talk with Penny Neer. We're also going to ask her a couple of questions about this year's games, and I'm interested in her perspective on a couple of the American athletes. So we'll be back with much more with Penny Neer coming up on the Time Out Show on AM and FM WCSR. AM 1340, FM 92.1, WCSR. Penny Neer is our guest tonight on the Time Out Show. Tiger baseball coming up. Tigers getting ready to take on the New York Yankees, looking for three in a row against the Yankees. We'll have that for you coming up. Laura Neer Stuchel, are you familiar with her?
That's my sister.
All right, here's what she wants me to ask you this. Ask her what her first exposure to the discus was, standing there looking at this, quote, thing that was delivered to the school in a box and that nobody has a clue about. Talk about your sister and your relationship with her.
Well, growing up, being 1 year apart, we competed in every last thing against each other, whether it was mowing lawn, doing dishes, you name it, and we competed against each other. And then one summer I broke her finger, but that's another story.
So what was this thing in the box? Nobody knew, huh?
Well, I threw this rubber discus that had been hit by a lawnmower, a big chunk out of it. Well, I started throwing farther and farther, so I think it was Ned. Ordered a discus, and it came one day, and we all gathered around and opened it up, and we said, "Oh, what's that?"
I guess we need to throw this thing, huh?
So new. Good one, Laura.
So you're at U of M, and then you're winning all of this stuff, you're accomplishing all of this. Did you know that even when you graduated that it was just going to continue, that you were going to go on and compete at the next level?
I knew I wanted to at least give it a try. So I graduated from Michigan in '83, and then in '84 was the first Olympic trials that was coming. So I said I could do this, went to the Olympic trials, and I finished 11th. The thing is about track and field is you have to finish in the top 3 on that day. So you could be a world record holder, the best in the nation. It doesn't matter. So I got a feel of what it would be like. I decided to train. I moved to California and learned how to throw. And then came the '88 trials. The day before, I blew out my ankle. and I still went to the trials. I finished 8th. I said, I've had it. I've sacrificed so many years. I'm going to give it up. So I moved back to Michigan, found a full-time job working for Bose Corporation, and my dad said, you know, this has been your dream your whole life, so you need to be persistent and try again. So I trained, worked full-time at the same time, and in 91, I qualified for the World Championships. That was in Japan, and I didn't want to jeopardize my job, so I left the day before. I hopped on this flight alone. I said to the U.S. team, I'll meet you in Japan. And I got over there, and there was no one there to meet me. No one spoke English. No yen in my pocket. Didn't know what to do. So finally, 2 hours later in Tokyo, comes this tall, good-looking man right through the crowd, right toward me. And I said, am I ever glad to see you? What time do we leave for the hotel? And he said, excuse me? And I said, aren't you with track and field? He said, no, I'm a Canadian businessman. But he spoke fluent Japanese, got me on my way, and not too long later, we ended up engaged. So that was a funny how we met story. But then came the 92 Olympic trials, and I was ranked second and went to the prelims where you have to qualify to make the finals. Oh, and my first throw was a worm burner. Second one was a rainmaker, so I was so nervous. Third throw didn't go far at all, so I ended up tied for 12th in the prelim round. Went to the finals. I made the finals at least, and during the finals I didn't have anything to lose, turned it on, and I made the Olympic team finally in 92.
I want to talk about that. I think this is a great part of your story. The fact that, 84 you didn't make it, those were the games in LA. I mean, that had to be an exciting opportunity to make that one. That was the Carl Lewis year and all of that. 88, you don't make it. That sort of refusal to give up. You're 30 now, 31 years old here. You're going to try it one more time. How did you keep going? Why did you just refuse to give up and kept trying so many times?
That is all due to my folks. We had the work ethic. You do what you set your mind to. You don't give up. And if that's your goal, you do everything you can to make it. So.
Now, I asked you off air, but I'll throw it out there again because I think it's kind of interesting, your response. At 92, you make it. Now, to me, this is interesting. You put all of your life, really, into trying to make this Olympic team. You finally make it. You go. It's an afternoon where you throw a couple of times, and then it's over.
It's over in about 6 seconds.
And then what, right?
Yeah, I've traveled the world over to throw a plate for 6 seconds.
So when that kind of moment passed and you were there, now it wasn't just the competition though. I mean, you got to walk with the team in the opening ceremony. That had to be an incredible thrill.
Well, that was quite a story. What they do is at the opening ceremonies, they put you in a holding stadium and they march you in. So my friend Pam, she went to Stanford, and as a thrower, she said, let's visit with all the other teams because marching in, we'll go in under United States. Well, I said, Pam, we got to get to the front of the line. We're in Spain. It's going to be Estados Unidos, beginning with E. So we moved up to the front of the line and got right behind the flag bearer so that when we walked in, we'd be right on TV. And sure enough, there's this big old hand waving.
And I remember, I was 13, 14 years old. I remember reading about you in the paper, seeing you on television that night, and everybody in the county was so excited because we don't send a lot of Olympic athletes out. What an incredible opportunity that was. When you look back at it now 20 years later, what do you think of? I mean, what memories do you still jump to first when you look back at it?
It was the camaraderie of the athletes, of course, but that I met a goal, and sadly, it's a letdown. It is such a letdown. When it's over, you just can't believe, what am I going to do now? And, of course, I had a full-time job to fall back on, but it's an odd way of life. But a lot of funny things happened in the village and among the other athletes. One time we were in the village, and they said, hey, we want to do a makeover. Who wants to volunteer? Well, I did. So we went to this resort on the Mediterranean and had a makeover. Well, there was John Tesh from Entertainment Tonight. And he said, well, where are you from? I said, well, I'm from Hillsdale, Michigan, a town so small, we know all the dogs by name.
That's right.
He said, well, that's going to be on TV. That's funny. So my dad called WCSR and they said, well, tune in tonight, folks. Our own Penny Neer will be on Entertainment Tonight. The only part they showed was me with wet hair, no makeup. We know all the dogs by name. So that wasn't a good thing.
But when you think about the Olympic experience and what that meant in your life, you're there now, 31 years old. You could have taken another run at it then. You have people trying to get you to do it again now.
Well,
and because when you look at the distances people are throwing, you really believe you could even now get back and get close to that, don't you?
I think I could. I stay in shape. Mom and I and my sister, we split wood, we haul rocks, we stay in shape. So my girls think I can, and
as long as they believe it, right?
Yeah.
So when you watch it, I mean, do you watch the Olympics now?
I do. And
you watch it pretty closely, and
yeah, into the night. So I'm very tired in the morning. But this Lola Jones,
right.
I admire her so much, tenacity, and just going after it. So
yeah, for sure.
What's going to be interesting is after these Olympics are over, what will the Michael Phelps do? Well,
that's what I want to ask you, because he's saying now, he's 27, he just won a couple more golds and he broke all of these records, and he's saying, I'm done, period. I'm not going to do it again. And I was listening to the Torpedo there from Australia saying, he says that now, but what's going to happen in a year or 2 years? Will he get that itch again to get back in that pool? In that respect, you can kind of sympathize with what Michael Phelps is going through, that grueling training regimen and all the rest of it. Do you think that that's going to weigh on him later, or do you think he's really done?
I don't think he's done.
You think he might do it again? Mm-hmm. What is it about competing at that level that's so hard to give up?
You're putting your name on the line. It's just like taking a test. You want to prove yourself. And the best advice I have for kids around here, or any athlete, is surround yourself with a good support system, but good people. So to have that kind of adrenaline, I mean, you talked about the nerves. I mean, I can't even imagine when your whole life comes down to this throw. I don't mean your whole life. You have your family and all the rest of it, but you've sacrificed a lot to do this. And how did you try to steady yourself in those times, like at the Olympics or the trials, when you had this big throw coming up? How did you try to get control or maybe harness those nerves? My dad had carved a wooden whale, and I had this as a good luck charm, and I pulled that thing out and must have rubbed its fins off, but you just have to remember, people are still going to love you. You've done the homework, believe in yourself. So it worked. And
by the time you made the Olympics, you were using proper technique, and you had good coaches and that sort of thing.
I still had some bad habits, but...
Now, when you went to Barcelona, did you stay the entire 2 weeks? Or do the team members come in together and stay together the whole time? Do people come and go? How does that work?
Oh, they send you in waves. So there's a staging area. Ours was in Tampa. So I rode the plane over to Barcelona with George Steinbrenner, sat right next to me. And then they bring you back in waves. And then a week after the Olympics ended, they sent us all to the White House. So then it was George Bush. And they said, well, you can shake his hand, but keep the line moving. He's had a long day. I knew I'd never be in the Olympics again. So I went to pull my discus out of my bag for him to sign. And the Secret Service were, what's in the bag? Stopped me cold. Well, I got my discus out finally, and George Bush signed it. He hands it to Barbara Bush to sign, and she said, oh, well, these aren't so heavy. It's like, hey, Barbara.
Yeah, I could throw that, she's thinking. I only have a minute or so left with you. I have another note here from Darren Kittle, a man that you know. He says, Andy, ask Penny what she has against Olympic steeplechase runners.
When I was at Michigan, I was the first one to ever hit the intramural building, hit a squirrel, hit a bird, and then I hit Olympic steeplechase runner Brian Deemer with my discus, so I wasn't very popular then.
You hit the guy when he was training?
Yep.
Wow. So you didn't always have pinpoint control over where that thing landed?
No.
Well, Penny, I think it's really cool that you came and talked a little bit about your story. And I think what you stressed to me off the air and even on here is it just wasn't about you. It was about your family and your parents and your sister who you talked about and all of these people that encouraged you and made you feel like you could do it.
Yep. They were such a support system, lending confidence and even retrieving discuses. I mean, my mom's a good thrower. So I wish my kids could have been around then to see.
Do you have a tape of the opening ceremony that they can look at?
Oh, I have the opening ceremonies. I have the Entertainment Tonight piece. I have me throwing, and yeah.
Do you have a little room at your house where you have some of this memorabilia?
No, they're buried somewhere. I don't even know.
Penny, thank you for coming in. It was really good to hear your story, and congratulations on everything you continue to do, not just talking about your story, but also working with young athletes today. I think it's awesome. It's really good to hear about that, too.
Well, thank you for having me, and I do want to thank all of Hillsdale County for being so supportive and still interested in my stories, and thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Penny Neer.